Hey guys, what's going on? This is the Skypillar Stadium Season 3 Zapdos Division Power Rankings. Heads up before we get started. These are These rankings are taken into account the team's post grace period transactions, but before their Week 2 transactions. So the teams may be a little different currently than they are appearing in these slides shown in this video. And just want to reiterate the fact that these rankings are 100% solely on the way that we feel about the team subjectively. They have nothing to do with, or they have no way, they do not take into account the way that we feel about the skill level of the coaches. That is totally separate. So there's just the way that we like the teams that were presented before us. So I will hand it over to my co-hosts to introduce themselves.
Hello everybody, my name is Rom. I am your Zapdos Division moderator and I will be helping Hulk and my other co-host that hasn't ever presented himself yet to evaluate these teams. I will do exactly this on the real one, by the way.
And my name is Sunsun, and I'll also be giving my placements of the Zapdos coaches.
All right, so starting off, we're gonna go from the way that we rank them from 16 so up to 1, so from worst to first, so to speak. So starting it off, we got number 16. We've got Yufnik. His team consists of Zygarde, Heat Train, Tapu Bulu, Aromatisse, Hitmontop, Electros, Silvally, Mega Absol, Slowbro, Drapion, and Masquerain.
So I want to speak about this team first because I rated the highest. So the first thing that becomes really apparent to me is how well it uses a ground type under grassy terrain. Because grassy terrain most of the time nerfs a little bit the ground type of choice and how you're gonna present, how you're gonna work around that. The dragon type of choice is Zygarde, and Zygarde has 1000 arrows, which is a move that is not affected by Bulu's grassy terrain. I think that this dragon fire steel core is actually pretty nice. I see some I see some synergy being played around these first picks. I think Aromatisse, although it overlaps a little bit with Tapu Bulu as a fairy type, Aromatisse is a really valid and a really good wish passer. It has some nice walls and Slowbro uh, has a nice wall in Slowbro. Hitran if you require Hitran to do the walling uh, role. Uh, and I personally don't like that much the fact that this team is running Drapion and Mega Absol. It's running actually two dark types. I don't think that this is quite ideal, but it is there. The other thing that I actually don't like is the lack of a ghost type, and the speed tiers of this team is actually what I really dislike. Because the fastest Pokemon is Mega Absol that can't run Scarf, and the other, uh, I quote, fast Pokemon are actually 3 base 95 speed, which is something that it's not ideal. And there is a big jump between Hitmontop to Electros from 70 to 50. So these are the things that I personally don't like about this team. And the things that I actually like about it. I like the momentum options, Volt Switch, U-Turn, Teleport, Baton Pass, Parting Shot. I think this is really good. I think the removal game is good. The hazard setting, not that much. And Cleric is there. Aromatisse is very valid as a Cleric.
I would echo those things. I think that the momentum that they gain is probably the highlight of this team, being able to position themselves in a very winnable matchup from turn to turn. The things that I think that they could maybe improve upon is, and it kind of plays into the speed tiers, is that I love the concept that they went for with Zygarde, Heatran, and Tapu Bulu. It would have been much better, in my opinion, if they could have gotten Rillaboom instead of Tapu Bulu, just because the speed tiers would have rounded out a lot better. Heatran and Bulu being about the same speed really kind of hurts them in that regard. But again, to your point, the grassy terrain with Zygarde is almost ideal for your Drake or for your ground type, utilizing grassy terrain. With that said, I'll hand it over to Sun.
So one look at this team, and you see that the first three, they synergize really well with each other. It's like Artran and Blue. They really appreciate grassy terrain, all of them. But with more pieces building on, you see that this team is very physical. Like the only special threats are Heatran, Electros sometimes, and probably Slowbro. That's it. Maybe Romanties here and there. So none of these guys can hit that hard on the side. So when you're prepping, it's very easy to just make all your walls physically defensive. Another thing to know is that none of these guys like taking skulls, except for maybe Slowbro and Aromatees, because they're also physical. Zygarde, Bulu, Mega Absol, him on top, Savali, Drapion. If they get burned, their effectiveness just drops incredibly low.
Good point.
And another,
Yeah,
people already mentioned the
the
speed tiers. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
and the one Pokemon that does it, that it's actually a special and doesn't care that, in theory wouldn't care that much about getting burned, is actually a fire type. So it cares about Scout, and
Yeah,
that's a problem.
it's weak to fire, weak to water. And as Ron and Paul mentioned, the speed tier is not that good. There's a 20 speed gap between 95 and 115. In my opinion, that's like the most crucial speed benchmark, because there's a lot of fast kickers, fast scarfers in that specific slot, like between 100 and 110, that Nick just doesn't have an answer.
Right.
And I think that's all we have to say about next team. We can just move on to the next one, which is Slipped AR at number 15.
Slipped AR's team consists of Tornadus Therian, Clefable, Scolipede, Metagross, Mega Charizard X, Volcanion, Breloom, Sandslash, and Rotom Frost. And I will go first with this team since I ranked them the highest. I really like this team's speed tiers quite a bit, aside from that 70 speed group there. I think that having Tornadus Therian and Scolipede there, I think their speed tiers are doing just fine. One thing that I didn't necessarily enjoy is that they don't have too many special walls, kind of playing into what we harped on the last team a little bit. But talking about more about what the team, I think that they got a solid Dragon Fairy Steel Core. I think Metagross, Charizard X, and Clefable, I think that's a solid pairing. They've got great hazards, great hazard removal, and I think that's key for a Mega Charizard X team. So I think they did a good job of drafting around Mega Charizard X. And things that I don't like so much about this team is they have a pretty glaring weakness to fire outside of Mega Charizard and Volcanion. And then aside from that, those two that tank the fire hits are very weak to ground, so it's very easy to pack on 2 coverage moves on the majority of your Pokemon and pretty much chip this team down pretty easily, pretty fast. And they've got good hazard removal, but they are very weak to rocks, so I would have liked to see them pack on a little more special walls, maybe drop one of the very costly mons, because their draft is very top heavy. As you see, they only have 9 Pokemon to pick up maybe in a special wall, and something to maybe help alleviate that fire ground weakness.
I think something else to know about this team is that it has no dark types. So as
That's
you can see,
what I was going to mention as well.
right, they're 0 ghost resistance.
Yeah, that's the
So
because
problem.
the main problem, the moment I was evaluating this team, I realized this is like not okay, because if you don't have a dark type, you're basically vulnerable to Pokemon that can actually use the setup stored power tech, which in some cases like game over. You don't have a prankster check, which is a little bit more niche, but the fact that you also don't have a spin blocker means that the fact that Scolipede can run spikes or T spikes is uh, not that ideal, because if you want removal, you have to go with the fog. So if you go with the fog, what happens to your spikes? They're gone. So there is no reason to stack them. And I agree with the thing about the rock type, the rock weakness. I especially don't like the fact that this team is carrying a Zardexo and a Volcanion, uh, that are two fire types that are weak to ground and rock, and you're making them. They have a really important role on this team, especially Volcanion, that will claim the position to be the main special attacker. And one thing that I also don't like is that despite it has Tornado Terian and Clefable, this team is very, very paper thin on the special side, on the SPDEF side, because if you look closely, the HP of none of these Pokemon is above 100. But you have a really solid physical defense on Metagross, Mega Charizard, Volcanion, but you don't can claim the same on the SPDEF side. Like the highest one is Rotom Frost with HP of like 50. That like quite doesn't count. And the speed tiers are okay-ish, except for this triple 70 between Metagross, Volcano, and Breloom. I really, really don't like that. And I think this team is actually pretty fast. And if you can run Trick Room, you probably should, because this team doesn't have quite good answers for it. I think that the utility level, like the hazards, the removal, and the cleric, and are okay-ish. I don't like that much that this momentum is also put to Clefable, and Clefable has to do a lot of stuff in terms of cleric and maybe rock setting. I think there are some good traits, but there are also some bad traits about this team.
I would agree. It's very one-dimensional, I think, to sum it up. Moving on to number 14, we've got Ice Ninja Alpha. Their team consists of Tapu Fini, Zapdos, Jirachi, Mega Aerodactyl, Como-O, Roserade, Darmanitan, Piloswine, and Dottler. Take it away, Sun.
So the team I have in actually has very similar core to this. It's got Tapu Fini, Mega Arrow, and Jirachi, and I think those three they will, they synergize decently. Jirachi gets a U-turn, Tapu Fini gets to set up terrain, and the Mega Arrow is just there to hit hard. But the thing with this specific team is the giant speed gap between 100 and 150, as well as there's another speed gap between 50 and 85. So two huge speed gaps that other people can take advantage of, and just your Dragapult no longer need to run Timid or Jolly. Your Mega Gallade can kill everything here but Mega Arrow, right? Another thing you have to notice is if we look at the first 4 Mons, none of them like taking Thunderbolt, Discharge, just any electric, right? Tapu Fini and Mega Arrow are weak to it. Zapdos and Jirachi are neutral. So very frail first 4 core in terms of electric immunity. And you have Zero Goals resist as well. So Shadow Ball spam is very effective against this team, other than maybe Komo's Bulletproof. But what I do like about this team is that the mainframe of this team is super, super powerful. Tapu Fini, Zapdos, Jirachi, Mega Arrow, Komo, they're very strong and they are all very good at their job. You got your good rockers. Tapu Fini can easily sweep with Calm Mind, Iron Defense, Taunt, Sub, all that. Mega Arrow has DD and Home Claws, so it can break holes through every team.
So I actually agree with lots of things. I'm gonna press the key again about the lack of dark type, and for the same reasons I have stated before. Like if you don't have a dark type, you're like Necrozma insta wins basically. But or for example, or any other starred power, or any Pokemon that can use starred power really well can basically insta win. It has very glaring ghost weakness. It also doesn't have ghost to spin block. But what I really like about this team is how versatile these Pokemons are to assume utility positions. For example, you have Zapdos, which is an absolutely amazing defogger. You have Roserade that can set spikes, and you have Jirachi that can basically do Wish, Healing Wish, can do Rocks, has momentum, and Roserade can also use Aromatherapy in case Misty Terrain is not enough. Like you have uh, a really good really good realm of Pokemon that you can use utility for. It has every hazard at least once. I really like that, and I agree with Sansan that the setup of this team is absolutely scary. You have Clangorous Soul Komo, or maybe Belly Drum Komo, or Aerodactyl with Dragon Dance, the Tapu Fini with Calm Mind. I think this offensive presence is really awesome. I really like it.
I will echo everything that you guys said and just kind of sum it up as the fact that yeah, he's the things that he's got going for it is very versatile, versatility in his main core mons, but they kind of come up short in terms of checking each other's weaknesses and um, patching up their shortcomings. Maybe one thing to improve upon was maybe drop Darmanitan or maybe Como, maybe not Como, but like I don't know, just maybe try to patch up those speed tiers with something that's a little bit cheaper, but you know or yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling on there, but yeah, patching the speed tiers and fixing your ghost weakness and spin blocking potential will probably improve this team quite a bit. Moving on to number 13, we've got Ghost, and her team consists of Mew, Mega Venusaur, Entei, Mimikyu, Skarmory, Inteleon, Snorlax, Makalola, Hariyama, Dedenne, and Marowak. Sun.
So one look at this team, you can see that's really, really hard to break. You got Mega Venusaur, Skarmory, Snorlax, Lone Muck. These guys all have giant, defensive stats. You're never gonna kill them with one hit ever. On top of that, you have Mew, you have Skarmory to lay the hazards up. This is basically, you know, it's a miniature stall team that's just trying to wear the opponent down slowly. Right? Mega Venusaur, you got Leech Seed, you can Toxic. Skarmory spikes, you can even Whirlwind. You have Alolan Muck knocking everything off, Hariyama knocking everything off. These, the longer the game gets, the easier it is for this team to win. And speaking of winning, Mew is one of the best win conditions because you never know what it's gonna do. It can nasty claw, it can dragon dance, SD. It can do everything you want it to. Right. On top of that, you have good breakers, Entei, in maybe sometimes, even Marowak throw a few punches. Inteleon is fast, good water type that can get momentum. It's got U-turn. And on top of that, it's also got a very good hazard control game. You have Skarmory and you have Mew, two of which are really good at defogging. And
So
yeah, Rom, take it away.
sorry. So I'm going to disagree with you a little bit about Mew's versatility, especially on this team, because yeah, Mew can do basically everything, but however, in certain teams it has to assume very specific roles. For example, if you take out Mew from this moves to watch out for list, and like you take it out, is pretend that Mew is not on this team. It is absurdly narrow. It is absurdly poor. I think that Mew needs to pack the utility of basically this entire team. And about longevity, I think that the fact that this team does not have Wish uh, really puts some specific walls or uh, specific walling up capabilities on a timer, because you can work around that without have to worry about Wish. And the other thing is, like, I agree, the defense is spot on. I absolutely love the defensive capability, but I don't love the fact that if you don't have Inteleon, you basically need to set up to be offensive. And like Mill, we already know, like, judging by this team, if it wants to have utility, you're probably going to use Mill as an utility with um, maybe rocks if Marowak or Skarm is not on the field. Maybe with Hellbell if it needs to protect against status, if it needs momentum, etc. etc. You need Mew to do this job, but outside of it, you need Swords Dance Mimikyu, you need Curse Legs, you need Growth Mega Venusaur, etc. etc. I think this team is very passive, and that's something I personally don't like. I also don't like the big drop of speed tiers. Like from Inteleon to Dedenne, you have almost 90 points, you hit a double 100, and you have a 20 drop from Skarmory to Makalola and Hariyama. I'm not the biggest fan of the speed of this team, and I think that if you don't bring Inteleon, your team is really slow. Like these are, I love the defense, but there are some things that I personally don't like about it. I also don't like the fact that it does not have a dragon type, and dragon type actually can contribute a lot in terms of offensiveness. Like dragon type is usually a very offensive type, and it could use a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, I think that this team, it's definitely I'll echo Sun a little bit here. I definitely think it echoes stall to an extent. Um, but the good thing about this team is that I don't think it really relies on Mew to do too much. Granted, I mean, not every match is going to need to run hazards or hazard removal when you have Skarmory, and I mean, Mew can be um, perfectly fine at just cleaning teams up once you chip them down enough. Mimikyu is an easy, free setup with either bulk up or swords dance, and it has priority. Entei is a choice or a very solid choice scarf or choice band user, depending on what you need it to do. And Inteleon could be good on this team because it doesn't really need a bulky water type. I think Mega Venusaur and Entei check each other's weaknesses quite well, and especially when you throw in Skarmory, where they don't really fear the Earthquake too much. And I think Inteleon could be a solid cleaner with the stamina. I could see Inteleon picking up a lot of kills for them. Moving on to number 12, we've got Lemon. Lemon's team consists of Kartana, Gudra, Sylveon, Mega Swampert, Porygon 2, Galvantula, Pelipper, Whimsicott, Sableye, Tentacruel, and Kabutops. To you, Sun.
So if we look at this team, immediately we can tell it's a ranked team. But outside of being a ranked team, it's also got a very defensive Sylveon, Gudra, Porygon 2, Sableye, Tentacruel. They're very bulky, and it's going to be very difficult for teams to break. Especially Tentacruel with Rain Dish, basically Toxic Orb, Glyceco, right? It's healing 12.5% every turn. it's really difficult for other teams to chip away at some of these mons because it's just going to stay alive forever. And you have Mega Swampert, you have Tana to back up the defensive presence to hopefully win a few games with him, as well as Kabutops to be another Swiftwind sleeper.
I think he pulled off a pretty good rain team. I mean, granted, rain team is very niche, and if somebody brings a way to shut down rain, it's kind of game over. Like Cloud9 can, and Cloud9 lucky can give this team problems. But I think that the mons that this team revolves around, the core of it, between Gudra, Kartana, Sylveon, Mega Swampert, and Pelipper, I think they all fit very well. I don't necessarily see the value in Kabutops. I think it's very, just kind of, it's just there. I can't see him bringing it too much when he's got Mega Swampert, and that kind of irks me a little bit with this team. And Galvantula seems a little out of place to me as well, just because Galvantula's main purpose, granted it's a fast electric type, but its main purpose on this team is to set webs, and I don't necessarily think he needs them. Granted, some weeks he may not want to bring rain, but...
So one thing to point out is that Galvantula is actually a transaction of week 1 to week 2. His original team had Vikavolt instead. And I consider it as a Vikavolt, not as a Galvantula. I don't think it really matters on my general impressions of the team. The feeling that you had with Kabutops, I actually had a little bit as well with Whimsicott, because I personally agree. I got really impressed with the fact that this team has 4 water types, and somehow it does not have stacked up weaknesses. Like when you see the type chart, like it covers everything really well. It's actually quite impressive. The Whimsicott is a little bit weird for me here, especially because you have Kartana, so you have 2 frail grass types. And another thing that I realized about this team is the fact that it doesn't like Will-O-Wisp at all. Like Kabutops, Mega Swampert, and Kartana, they are all like, they assume a position of really breaking some teams here. Like Kartana is stupidly strong, Swampert is stupidly strong, Kabutops with a Swords Dance is really scared, but you can warn that out with Will-O-Wisp. And the protection that you would supposedly have for a Will-O-Wisp would be a fire type, something that this team actually doesn't have. This team also does not have a psychic type, but I personally don't see that much of a big deal here, not having a psychic type. I think that's okay. But I think that if you want to be safe from Will-O-Wisp, you also always have to bring Sylveon every time. So, I mean, it's good, a relatively good rain team. There are some things that I think that are a little bit problematic. The speed control, I actually quite kind of like the fact that this team has a sticky web, because that doesn't mean you always have to rely on rain, especially, but this team actually have a hard rain, so a beneficial part of the stick web would be Kartana, and that's it. But I kind of like the fact that it has webs. And yeah, I actually don't consider the defensive spectrum of the team that much amazing on the physical side. I don't like that much on the walls that are being put on the physical side, because like the biggest defense is Kartana, but Kartana has Paper Thin HP. But the other defenses besides Mega Swampert, like the highest defenses are have low HP. So you can claim that as a wall per se. The special side, on the other hand, you have Tentacruel and Gudra and Sylveon, so you're absolutely fine on the special side. The physical side leaves a little bit to be desired, in my opinion.
I think those are all fair comments. I guess I didn't. That does make sense with the webs now that you mention it. Um, with that though, we'll move on to number 11. Coming up next, we got Pinorska, and he's got a semi-trick room team consisting of Mega Mawile, Latios, Rotom Wash, Slowking, Umbreon, Infernape, Nidoking, Rebombi, and Executor Alola. I will hand it off to you, Ram.
You actually presented the thing that I loved about this team is the fact that you have a Trick Room team that uses Mega Mawile and Slowbro. Like you can set the Trick Room with a Regenerator Pokemon, teleport it, and give the role to Mega Mawile. I think this is really good. But okay, let's pretend that I don't want to run Trick Room on this matchup. Well, you have the company of Latios and Rotom Wash that can absolutely eat it. Everything that can supposedly threat Mega Mawile. Like Mega Mawile, main problem is the fire and ground. And you have Latios and Rotom Wash that also happens to be immune to ground and resistant to fire. You can arguably claim that Rotom Wash is not exactly a resist for anything because it is not the best on the HP regard, but Latios can eat a lot of these hits. You also have Umbro, which is an absolutely amazing cleric overall, and with Wish, Baton Pass, and Heal Bell, and move that it doesn't get shut down by taunt like Foul Play. I like the options of Infernape, and you can run another form of speed control, just like Lemon's team that has Rain with uh, to do speed control. This team, besides Trick Room, also have Stick Web with Rebombi if it wishes to do the speed control. So I really like. I don't know if when I saw your rankings, I really questioned if I was seeing something that wasn't there. Like I got really worried that I was tripping, but I really like how this team helps Mega Mawile so much. I love this team.
Nope. Do we lose Ram?
Fan of like sorry?
Oh,
What?
sorry, we lost you for a second. You're back. Go ahead.
Sorry.
You're okay.
I said that I loved how this team helps Mega Mawile. I love this. I don't love the fact that the grass type of choice is Executor Alola. I know it's a Trick Room setter, but it doesn't add that much to the team overall, especially when you have Slowking that can do this absolutely all day. I I personally don't like the fact that it lacks ghost and normal types. I think this is a little bit of a problem as well. And I don't like the over. I I know I said that I liked Rotten Wash and I liked Slow King, but I don't think you can have these two as two options to be together on a team. I think this might be a little bit problematic. And I guess that's it. I like this team overall.
I think
So
the
in
few.
my opinion,
Oh, go. You go
okay,
ahead.
all right. So in my opinion, this team has 9 Pokemon, but there are 4 repeated types. So that shouldn't be the case if you only draft 9 mons, because you should be spreading out your typings more. And then there are 2 giant speed gaps in this team: 86 to 108, as well as 65 to 85. So having these gaps makes it a lot easier to prep against. And another thing about this team is it's so prediction reliant that if you don't predict correctly, you're probably going to be stuck in a hole that you can't climb out of because of how limited you are. And Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna echo the fact that having Rotom Wash and Slowking on the team together, I don't like that either. Getting rid of Rotom Wash would be more ideal to me, and keeping Slowking and picking up something else for your Electric type, and getting something that maybe like a Flying type to help give you more ground resists. Um, I really Executor Alola, just the fact that it's on the team kind of downgrades it in my opinion. Just because I mean it just doesn't. I mean I've never. I could just be personal bias. Like I've never seen it used well, and so I just don't think it's good. But um, I mean I could see it shining in a few matches in Trick Room, but I think this team is very like what Sun said. I think it's very predictable. I mean, you know what's going to try to do each week. It's going to try to set up Trick Room and bring Mike Mawile in, and then clean you up with Infernape or Latios. And I just think you bring a good taunt user and something speedy. I think you could. I think you could beat this team pretty easily. But I like the concept though. I like the concept. I think it just falls a little bit short. Moving on to number 10, we've got Jazzy. And Jesse's team consists of Victini, Mega Gyarados, Garchomp, Crobat, Nidoqueen, Magnezone, Delmise, Slurpuff, Tauros, Primeape, and Colossal. Take it away, Ram.
I like the first 4 picks of this team. Victini, Mega Gyarados, Garchomp, and Crobat. I love this. The I think the first thing that becomes pretty noticeable is like how these 4 they complement each other really really well. For example, if you have a Victini and you're in front of a very obvious ground attack, you can go Crobat. If you have Crobat on the front or Garchomp, you can go Mega Gyarados or Victini to cover an ice attack. And if you have an electric attack coming your way to hit Gyarados or Crobat, you can go Garchomp. I think these relations are very, very, very spot on. I really, really like that. I don't like the fact that it has Nidoqueen on this team. It looks a little bit off. It looks like it's you have a double poison uh, coming in, which attracts a lot of psychic spam. So you have to run Mega Gyarados every time and be sure that you're gonna Mega Evolve before. So I personally don't like the fact that Nidoqueen is here. One thing that I also don't like is the fact that this team is very, very physical. Like, you count on Magnezone to be the. I'm sorry I'm speaking this name, Hawk. I didn't mean to. But I really. Uh, I really, really. The only thing the special side is actually Magnezone, but you have some utility and some hazard game with Slurpuff on Stick Web. You have Colossal using Rapid Stealth Rock. There are some. You have Nidoqueen since it's there uh, to Stealth Rock too, Garchomp too. The thing that I actually don't like and that hurts a lot on this team is the fact that if you're using Slurpuff to be an utility role, you basically don't have fairy coverage. Like Victini learns Dazzling Gleam and Slurpuff is a fairy, but literally anything else has a fairy attack. And that sounds like a safety net that opponents can exploit too. And I, uh, the speed tiers, I actually like it. I think it descends really, really, really well. The defensive side repeats the same thing as the offensive side of being extremely physical, but not that much special. But I think this is okay in terms of defense because you have Assault Vest, so you can make something pseudo special wall. And I think that's it. I wish these speed tiers are beautiful. I love them. So I think that's it.
I would agree that I don't like the type overlaps that Nidoking or Nidoqueen provides. on this team, the doubling up on poison and ground type. Um, and I think I ranked this team last just solely because it has Magnezone. I have a acquired
I knew it.
disdain for this thing. If you're not familiar, I lost a finals game on a crit Magnezone right away, and I had nothing to break it. So, um,
It was a really, really sad time. I'm sorry, Hulk. I hope you still like me because I said Magnezone.
I still like you, Rom. I still love you.
I love you too.
But this Magnezone, it does it. I think it belongs pretty nicely on this team. I like the fact that they leverage Primeape, and I think it's a low tier pick that works out really well for them because they have uh, each variation of hazards, and if the opponent wants to remove them in any way outside of Rapid Spin, Primeape can just come in, take advantage of the Defiant Boost, and do some damage, or you could just pivot out with U-Turn. And a speed tier from Primeape isn't that bad either with 95. Things I don't like on this team, though, is it's very water and ground weak, and if you have a Mamoswine or a Piloswine, more so Mamoswine, you can potentially just run through this team with a Scarf Mamo, and I don't like that at all. That's essentially all I have to say about this team.
So you mentioned that you like Magnezone with this team. I think Magnezone does not fit at all with this team at all. It's not a good defensive steel type, obviously. And why does any of these guys need help with steel types, right? What does it help? Victini does not need help, killing steel type. Garchomp doesn't need help. Nidoqueen doesn't need help. Gyarados can handle most steel types on its own. I mean, on the other spectrum, we got Primeape, Colossal. They can kill steel types, right? Magnezone doesn't have a role on this team, I don't think. I think if you replace it with a different steel type, this team would actually look a lot better, right? Another aspect of this team I like is that you got so many different breakers to set up for a Gyarados sweep that you're definitely gonna see Gyarados probably be the kill leader. I think this team has the potential to cling through a lot of its competition just by how strong most of its attacks. That's all I have to say about Jazzy's team.
All right, jumping ahead to number 9, we've got Halix, and his team consists of Mega Scizor, Terrakion, Arcanine, Latias, Rotom Mow, Grimmsnarl, Ralligator, Dual Blade, Audino, and Mudsdale. I had this team ranked the highest, so I'll talk about it first. I love the idea of Mega Scizor, and I had kind of a fascination with Mega Scizor early on in my draft experiences, and I think one thing that Dawson before he left kind of perfected, I think, to an extent, and it makes a lot of sense, is that when there's a few things that you want to have and make sure that you check the boxes on if you have a Mega Scizor team, and one is a Flash Fire user. Check, you've got Arcanine, that's great. Offensive water type for Alligator, perfect. And then he's got the special walls and Latias to check things that it takes pressure off of Arcanine to check all the fire attacks. And I just think this team is very well rounded. I think the speed tiers could top out a little bit higher. That's one thing that I'm not too fond of on this team, but it has Trick Room potential. And with Mudsdale being able to just tank physical hits alongside Mega Scizor, he's got Latias and screen support from Grimmsnarl for taking special hits. I think this team has some good potential. It's not. I don't think he has to bring one thing every week. The one thing that I would say that I'm not too fond of on this team is Dual Blade. I don't really see the role of it aside from being the lone ghost type on this team to block Rapid Spin. But I think that those points could be better spent elsewhere. I think he's got plenty of immediate offensive potential where he doesn't have to rely on setup, and on the other side, he has plenty of setup. So I think it's a solid team. Lacking hazards, no shortage of hazard removers. He's got 3 solid defoggers. That's about all I have to say about this team. I think this looks like a team that I would draft, honestly.
I'm going to agree with the fact that this team has the Flash Fire Mega Scizor duo. I think this works really, really well. I really, really dislike the hazard game of this team. The hazard game of this team is not good at all. I think that this team falls a little bit on the passive side, in my opinion. You have Mega Caesar, Terrakion, Feraligatr, and that's it. For others, you might need to clutch it out a little bit to force them to be offensive. I don't really like that much. Some mons don't like to take the offensive role at its fullest, like Grimmsnarf, for example. And there has I uh, the speed. I think it's really slow. Not absurdly slow, but falls a little bit more on the slow side. The drops are cool, but it is slow. And I think the defensive spectrum of this team is actually really good. I kind of like the blade there. I think it can work as a spin blocker and a ghost type. It has Audino, which is absurdly versatile. Yeah, overall I like this team.
I think when I look at this team, it just screams offense, right? If we to replace Scizor, Mega Scizor with just Scizor, we have Scizor, Terrakion, Latias, screens user for Alligator, the Blade. That's just a Gen 7 UU hyper offense team with screens, right? Everything on this team is just trying to set up to win. The few defensive mons you have, they're just, they don't have, I don't think they fit in what this team wants, right? Even Latias, Rotom, they don't have as much defensive capabilities as other mons, say like the EV forms like Porygon 2, all of that. And again, as other people have mentioned, Hazard Game, very poor. You got Mudstill, that Terrakion, that's it, right? Not a lot of support to help break things. Screens offense, right? Depends on the user. Go big or go home.
That's true. Go big, Alex. Moving on to number 8, just past the halfway point, we've got Badger. Badger has Mega Gallade, Corviknight, Volcarona, Amoonguss, Diggersby, Suicune, Zoroark, Noivern, and Comfey. You're up, Ron.
So the first thing that I really like about this team is the offensive spectrum of it. Like you have Mega Gallade, which is a wild card. It's absolutely unpredictable. You have Volcarona, which can go on the special side. You have Diggersby. You can run setup Suicune, and you can have Noivern. So Life Orb or Specs Noivern can hit really hard. You have some actually pretty nice defensive mons on Corviknight, Among Us, and against Suicune if you wish. Speaking of which, this team is actually wishless. It doesn't have a wish passer, so it puts some things on this team on a timer. Uh, and you basically have to run self-recovery if you want to make great use of these walls. And there is regarding the speed tier, I think that there's a big drop and very exploitable between Corviknight and Among Us. There are a lot of slow, strong Pokemon on this realm, like Pangoro, for example, that uh, can run rampart. And I think there's also the flying weakness. I think the flying weakness of this team. You're relying way too much on Corviknight to help you on that. And I think that's it. I really like this team overall.
I think the one thing about this team I really don't like is the fact that it's so weak to knock. Right? You look at everything else but Mega Gallade, they don't like getting their items knocked off. Formnite, Volcarona, Suicune, Noivern, they all want to keep their items. And if you take another look, you can see that this team also has very rocks weak mod, right? You have Volcarona, you have Noivern, and then everybody else except for Mega Gallade and Diggersby, they're all neutral to rocks. So hazards are going to be a big issue with this team. And on top of that, this team doesn't have a real dark type. Zoroark is not a good defensive dark at all. You don't even want it to be taking hits because you want to keep its illusion, right? So for dark types, for ghost types, this team might struggle a little bit. But what I can say that I like about this team is that it's got 2 pressure users. So the game ever gets dire, he can always stall you out.
Good points. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add other than the fact that just, you know, I don't have anything else to add. I think the team, I think they did a good job of building the team around 9 Mons. I think this is what the other team that we harped on for being too predictable when they had only 9 members on their team. I think this team did it much better. And they've got a variety of immediate offense in both physical and special. They got plenty of setup options, I believe, and Scarf Diggersby can be scary. They've got a handful of very scary mounts, and I don't think they're necessarily weak to one thing other than just knock off and rocks. They've got plenty of hazard removers though, in Corviknight, Volcarona, but you're not really going to run it on that for the most part. And then you got Neubern and Comfey. I think those are solid rock removers, and they help out the team a lot. But you're always going to be fighting that battle with this team, I think. Good team though, solid. Moving on to number 7, we've got Hex, and Hex brings Mega Diancie, Celesteela, Rillaboom, Reuniclus, Toxapex, Chinchino, Incineroar, Druddigon, Hitmonchan, Illumise, and Rotom Fan to the party. And I will start off with this team. I think this team is very well rounded. I think they are very strong on the offensive side, and I think they did a very good job at checking their offensive potential with good defensive walls that support them. I think Mega Diancie and Celesteela forms a very, very potent combo right away. And then you got Toxapex there to tank the fire attacks for Celesteela. I think they just got 2 really good 1-2 punches there with Mega Diancie and Celesteela, and then Toxapex and Celesteela. Rillaboom really, just adds on to that for Mega Diancie. And Toxapex for more passive recovery and reducing the power of the ground type moves that they're both weak to. And provides a lot of pressure to just remove the bulky water types that hinder this team a little bit. I think they did a good job of taking advantage of the low tier picks and getting Chinchino, Druddigon, Hitmonchan, and Rotom Fan. I think they're all good low tier picks for this team. It's a little lacking on the hazards game. Asking, it's either going to be Druddigon every week running rocks because you're not really going to run on Mega Diancie that often, or Toxic Spikes on Toxapex. And after that, you're probably going to bring Rapid Spin, Hitmonchan, or Rotom Fan every week. So it's kind of leaves them predictable in that regard. But I don't think it really hinders this team to be, too predictable. I like this team a lot.
So there's a little bit of a problem here, which is the fact that this team actually does not have Rotom Fan. Rotom Fan belongs to Aku. This team actually has a Johto instead. I looked at first glance on the slide, and it was a little bit off with what I had prepped for.
What is it again?
But it is actually a Johto. It's not a Rotom Fan.
Gotcha.
You have something to something new to add now that it is a Johto.
A little bit.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. It doesn't change too much in my opinion. It provides good momentum and good top end on the speed spectrum. Makes him a little more ground weak, but Rillaboom helps out with that quite a bit. It doesn't change too much for me. I still think this is a solid team.
In my opinion, I think this team, there's no hazard, right? It's just Hitmonchan with Rapid Spin and Illumise with Defog. Neither of those two you want to bring every game, but you might be forced to do that just because of how threatened you are by hazard, right? Stealth
Magic
Rock
Bounce.
is everything here.
Magic Bounce helps with that to an extent.
But if you read it wrong, forget about it.
That's true. That's
if
true.
you use Stealth Rock or anything, and your only, and I quote, removal is a Magic Bounce, you're in trouble.
Right.
And you also have to make it first. Right?
Yeah.
Look how devastating this team is if webs were set up already. Against it, right? Nothing here will actually outspeed anything for the most part. On top of that, majority of this team does not like taking electric type attacks, which surprisingly is pretty common because there's no ground type here. There's two munis, so Rillaboom and Druddigon, and Jolteon's Voltorb. But most of the other guys, they're very trick weak. Celestia Toxapex, they're very easy to break if you just bring Thunderbolt. Or even Volt Switch, right? Volt Switch gets you momentum on all of these guys except for Jolteon. And Jolteon should not be something you bring every week to counter the other electric types your opponent has.
I also want to point out, and this is more of my playstyle talk, which is the fact that you're also relying on very two unreliable mons to be our cleric. Like you have Illumise and Jotun. You're not gonna bring these mons every week. So you're basically playing most of the time you can play on a timer, except for this regenerator core between Reuniclus and Toxapex. I think the offensive department is really, really good. And as Hawk said, like Megadiance, Celesteela, Reuniclus, and also Choice Band Rillaboom can do a lot of damage. But the main problem that I had with this team is the fact that it's easily exploitable by strong electric attacks unless you bring Jolteon every matchup, which is less than ideal. And I, f- and I think that's it, at least
All
for
right.
me.
All right. Moving on to number 6. We've got Tra. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Um, his or her team consists of Gliscor, Tyranitar, Milotic, Dracozolt, Cresselia, Leafeon, Excadrill, Ambipom, Mismagius, Togekiss, and Simisear. I rank this team very high. Number 2, in fact. I think they did a good job of building a sand team. Um, it's got some weaknesses to rocks, ice, and water. And it does put a lot of pressure on Milotic to check the very numerous ice attacks that are going to be coming this way, and if somebody brings Freeze Dry, that could spell a lot of trouble for this team. However, I think Milotic is very bulky, or a good addition for this team. Bulky water, not everybody's going to have Freeze Dry, and I think this team's got a lot of good momentum. I think it's got a lot of good breakers. It's got setup potential in Gliscor, and you know, a lot of this team's offense. I mean, most teams aren't going to want to take too many hits from him, and once Sand is up, it's going to be hard for teams to stop it unless they got Cloud9 or another hand or a weather setter of their own. So, um, I don't like the ice and the rock weaknesses, nor the water weaknesses, but I don't think they're necessarily detrimental to this team. I think they got solid speed tiers from where for the range they cover. I wish I could have gone down a little bit farther below 61. Tyranitar is their slowest Pokemon. And so if somebody wants to bring Trick Room against this team, I think they're kind of dead in the water to an extent. But that's going to be situational. Not everybody has a Trick Room team. They got solid hazard removal, Excadrill, Gliscor, and Togekiss, and good rock setters in Tyranitar and Excadrill, freeing up Gliscor to run setup moves or other utility moves. But not having any of the hazards kind of hurts it in my opinion. But I like this team a lot.
So the thing that I actually uh, I looked about this team is I really loved the Sand Core. I think you can work that really well with Tyranitar, Dracozolt, and Excadrill. Like you have the two amazing abusers. I I am not a big fan of Leafeon on this team, to be honest. I think that Leafeon is a very prominent sun Pokemon, and the thing that you don't want on the field is sun. You want sand. So you could have chose a better low tier grass type to be instead. And I actually don't like the fact that if you exclude Baton Pass, like most most of the time you run set, not use Baton Pass, you have some narrow momentum options, which is something that I personally don't like. I think that you're counting way too much on maybe Milo and Milotic to tank the special water type attacks, and Dracozolt. Lithium is not a great special check. I think water might be a little bit of a problem here. And yeah, I personally, these are the points that I have to point. And I also think that the immediate threats of this team, like you throw on the field and boom, it's threatening, they are really, really narrow, in my opinion. Like it's Dracozolt and maybe Excadrill with Life Orb. Everything else it needs to set up to be be scary, and this is something that I personally do not enjoy. And the speed tiers, I think it's very clunky. It's very stacked on the 80 to 88, and but other than that, it drops really well.
So, as both of you guys already mentioned, melodic is the most important glue piece to this team, right? It holds everything together. It's a flip turn. It's a momentum, right? It's a water and ice. It's a status absorber. It can recover. It does everything this team, I guess, doesn't have. And on top of that, I also want to mention, I think that melodic and Cresselia, they don't function that well, especially Cresselia. Moonlight is not going to be as effective under sand, so its durability is cut in half straight up. Melodic, most of the time, it's going to be running Marvel skill with Flame Orb, so you're going to be taking burn damage. You're going to be taking sand chip. You're going to be forced to recover way more often than ever. And Gliscor and Excadrill, double ground, I don't like that on this team simply because I want to see other sand abusers or just other mons to help them shine more. We don't need two earthquake users on this. We need mons to help break other, ground checks. How are you gonna break defensive grounds with this team? Really, in my opinion.
Solid points. I agree with those a lot. I do think that now that you mention it, I guess I would like to see something other than Excadrill. I think Gliscor and Dracozolt would function just fine on their own, and maybe something like Jellicent would be better than Milotic, and then maybe they've already got two. They already got a status absorber and Gliscor. They don't need another one. And yeah, I don't have much else to add to this team. We'll move on to number 5. We've got Purple Piglets coming in at number 5. Team consists of Mega Lopunny, Necrozma, Dragon Knight, Rotom, Heat, Zarude, Stakataka, Seismitoad, Florges, Electivire, Muck, and Exploud. Take it away, Sansan.
I think the hazard game on this team is very solid. Necrozma, Stack Attack, and Seismitoad, they are decent rockers. They can do it reliably. And another look at this team, you got many mons that can straight up sweep. You got Necrozma setting up, whether it be DD, whether it be Cosmic Power, Calm Mind, can do it all. You got Dragonite. Dragon Dance Dragonite, one of the scariest sweepers that we have. And you got really good breakers for it too. Megalopony can break holes in every team. Specs Exploud on the other side, you can pretty much nab a KO on everything that doesn't resist Bloom Burst, which only Steel types and Rock types can do that. And Exploud still has Fire Blast for Steels, Hydro or Hydro Punch Rock.
Yeah, I think the scariest thing about this team is the setup potential. And then this team, having the reliable rockers and these setup sweepers. I mean, get up rocks, set up once, punch some holes, and then eventually late game, make a low point is able to just freely clean it up. I think not being specifically weak to one thing really helps this team a lot. I think it's very versatile where it's got immediate offense on both offense and physical sides. It's got special and physical walls to help check its weaknesses on the sweepers. I think this team functions very well together. I think the synergy is all there. I like the speed tiers also.
About the speed tiers, for the first time, I think I am rating the lowest team with Mega Lopunny. I am actually shocked. But the thing is, the Mega Lopunny to Zarude is a fairly big speed drop, and you have an even bigger speed drop to Muk to Stakataka. And Stakataka, and that's something that looks a little bit off to me at least, it's the fact that you have a really, really shiny Trick Room Pokemon, but you don't have a Trick Room team. You have this. You have the Stakataka and it's there. If the intention was to bring another uh, steel type, Aegislash or Dual Blade would be absolutely perfect here because it is also a ghost type. It can synergize really, really well with Megalopunny and with Zarude and Necrozma. And one of these two would be absolutely perfect here. I think the Stakataka is a little bit off. And I agree with Sansan with the fact that this team is really, really good in terms of offensive, but I would appreciate a spinner and another type of hazard like spikes. But that's very, very minor. I actually like this team.
All right. We'll move on to number 4. We've got Alina herself showing up, and her team consists of Dragapult, Tapu Lele, Mandibuzz, Empoleon, Charizard Y, Hitmonlee, Hippowdon, Appletun, Boltund, Stoutland, and Carkol. I ranked her slightly higher than Sun did, so I'll start off. I think the first 3 picks perform extremely well together in Dragapult, Tapu Lele, and Mandibuzz. The synergy that Mandibuzz provides for the 2 in front of it is very key. Having that bulky, dark defensive type to tank the ghost moves that both of those 2 are going to be seeing. And then the pick immediately following, Empoleon, does a good job of checking the numerous fairy types that those first 3 picks are going to take. The dual weather is a little bit confusing to me with Mega Charizard Y and Hippowdon, but Mega Charizard Y doesn't necessarily need a team around it for weather. It can kind of do its own thing in the sun and be just fine. Having a cheap Sand Abuser in Stoutland, I think was pretty nice. And I think the biggest knocks I have in this team are Appletun and Carkol. I think Appletun was not the move for the cheap grass type. It overlaps the dragon type with Dragapult, makes this team more ice weak than it needs to be, and you're relying on Carkol a lot to set rocks unless you bring in Empoleon each game or Hippowdon. I don't see the function of Carkol. I think it's just there, to be honest with you. I mean, everything that it does, you got members on the team that do it better. So I don't see the point of Carkol on this team. But other than that, I think the team is pretty solid.
I think a big issue I have with the team is it's so specially focused. Tapu Lele, Zard Y, your 2 biggest breakers are both specially based, and your other one is Dragapult, right? Dragapult's more often than not going to be running physical, or else there's literally nothing here that's breaking a special wall like Sylvia, right? Maybe later with Sideshock. But other than that, there's not much, I guess there's Hitmonlee and Boltund, but neither of those 2 are they're not a standout breaker you have like Tapu Lele, like Zard Y. Another thing I want to bring up is I don't think Hippowdon fits that well, or Sand doesn't fit that well. I think most times, more often than not, the Hippowdon is going to be Sand Force, which means that Stoutland on the other side is going to be more. It's going to be on the bench probably every single week. I don't think Stoutland has a role. Rom, you can finish off.
So, I actually agree with Hulk when he pointed out that the first 3 picks were really good, Dragapult, Tapu Lele, and Mandibuzz, but I might also add that I really loved the 4th pick and Empoleon, because this first trio, like the first trio, it doesn't have a fairy resist, neither an ice resist. So you have Empoleon and boom, amazing. Like now you have a fantastic form. I really, really, really don't like Zard Y, especially because I say its name as Zard Y, and it doesn't especially work with this team. I don't like Charizard Y in any team, but I especially don't like here. I think the Sun only works for itself. If you have to switch out to bring something else, uh, it doesn't work that fairly well. You're just giving a fire coverage nuke for your opponent. I don't think that's good. And if you're going to bring Zard Y, your defog has to be A game. A game. Like you have to bring a removal game absolutely amazing. And to be honest, I don't think that's it. Because Rapid Spin, you have Hitmonlee and Carco, two mons that I don't think you're gonna bring that often. Mandibuzz is also rock and electric weak, just like, and all the defoggers are electric weak. I don't think you have the nice environment to remove rocks for this lizard to come in. And I mean, this might be a little bit of bias of me not liking Zardwai at all, but overall, after and speed wise, there's a big drop from 80 to 60, and there are two overlaps in 80. And other than that, I think it's fine. The momentum game is also um, leaves a little bit to be desired, as well as the cleric game since it doesn't have wish. The hazards I like. I really like the hazard. It can work really well on that. Sorry
All
for
right.
my rant for Zardwai.
No, you're good. You're good. I think that covers Lena's team. Moving on to top cut, top three. Coming in at number three, we got Bowser. Bowser's team has Tapu Koko, Hydreigon, Mega Metacham, Scizor, Gligar, Araquanid, Serperior, Moltres, Weezing, and Wigglytuff. You want to start us off, Ron?
So the first thing that I absolutely love, I saw this and I fell in love, is how amazing this momentum is. Like the Baton, you have a plethora of options in Baton Pass, Teleport, you have U-Turn, you have Volt Switch. Like this team can keep the show going in any time. This is absolutely amazing. The removal option, like you have 5 removal options. You can pick and choose. Uh, oh, who's gonna be the removal today? Oh, it can be you. You have a cleric, you have a solid cleric, and you have 3 out of the 4 hazards. Like this is actually really good. And this right off the bat, when I first looked at that, I really really loved. I think that Tapu Koko and Airborne Dragon is actually a really good choice as well. You have Caesar and Mega Medichan that helps to coverage the overall weakness of the team, and you have Araquanid, which I must say, in my opinion, is tied with Orbital to be the best stick web of the game. I don't think the defensive overall is that amazing. I think you're relying on a little bit more of offensive squad, but it you can make it work. You have Moltres and Weezing and Caesar to do these roles, but the defensive leaves a little bit to be desired, and there is a slightly big gap of speed between Weezing and Wigglytuff. And this team also does not have a ghost, which is a little bit of a problem. And yeah, I think that's it, at least for me. You guys can take it away from now.
I think the thing that this team screams is Webb's Mega Metagam, and I think that is such a strong combo as we've seen Sun use in the past and other champions in the Sky Pillar Stadium. I think we've seen maybe 2 people win with that combo. I think the screens Tapu Koko could perform very well on this team to set up screens to help bulk more hits and then get out of there with Volt Switch or U-Turn. Hydreigon performs really well on this team, and screens only help it set up even more. This team has plenty of immediate, offense between Scizor, Mega Metacham, Hydreigon, Tapu Koko. The list goes on. I mean, everything aside from Wigglytuff, Weezing, and Gligar can be offensively threatening right out the gates. Again, the momentum and defogs, very big strengths on this team. However, I agree with Rom. Rapid Spinner would have been nice to be able to keep your own webs up when you want to get rid of hazards. But other than that, I mean, speed tiers are good. I think the team synergizes quite well.
I think this team is very offensive. Everything here hits really hard, very powerfully. But that's the thing. Defensively, this team might struggle a bit. We have Gligar, Moltres, Weezing, and Araquanid as our potential walls. All of them do not appreciate getting knocked off, especially Gligar and Moltres, right? On top of that, only Gligar and just one more. Gligar and Wigglytuff are the rock setters, right? Those are not your ideal rock setters, especially with. So there might be situations where this team just missing a little bit of chip to finish off his opponents, but you just don't have it. On top of that, I think this team is it's very similar to Alex's team. It's very, go big or go home, hit or miss, right? You either kill your opponents with good actions, or you struggle to pick up because you're now falling behind. And that's all I have to say about Bowser.
Good points. All right, moving on to number 2. We've got LS showing up at number 2. And their team consists of Zeraora, Landorus, Therian, Ferrothorn, Vaporeon, Mega Gardevoir, Lucario, Dragalge, Sneasel, Chandelure, and Noctowl, the mascot pick. Go for it, Rom.
I absolutely love this. This is something that I would definitely use. I mean, I've put it on first. But let's start with the things that I don't like, because there's a lot that I actually like. The removal game is not my favorite, and that's it. Like, you have Noctowl and Landorus Terian. Like, this, you're basically forcing these two to assume a removal role, and it may not be ideal, especially when Landorus Terian has a good ground matchup that is too good to ignore and can use the defog. But like other than that, you have Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn can set rocks, can set spikes. If Ferrothorn's in trouble, you can use Flash Fire. Oh, you have a problem with maybe an earthquake coming to your Zeraora. You have Landorus Terian. If you have a problem with uh, some sort of longevity and you need a cleric, you have Vaporeon. Vaporeon is absolutely amazing as a Wish Passer. I think it's the best Wish Passer out of the evolutions. And like Mega Gardevoir can snap some necks. Like it can do this. You also have Chandelure, you have Life Orb Zeraora, you can use Landorus Terian. It is. I really like this. I really like this in almost every regard. Maybe the speed tier is not the best. From Zeraora to Sneasel is a really hard drop, and from Dragalge to Ferrothorn is also a really bad drop as well. But other than that, is amazing. I really love this. Well done, OS. Congrats of having my favorite team of this season for Zapdos Division. Now I pass to the others. Take it away.
You can go first, Sun.
I think team offensively is really powerful. Zeraora, Mega Gardevoir, Dragalge, Landorus. They're very good at just breaking down things. On top of that, you got very good pivoting options. Landorus T, Zeraora, Gauji. They can all pivot into the monster breaker that's Mega Gardevoir or even Chandelure on the other. So there's not going to be any issue breaking walls. The only issue might be taking hits because the game is pretty ground weak. You have only 2 immunity, right? Everything else is either weak or neutral to ground, which is something that you can easily exploit. On top of that, this team is so weak, ghost types and dark types. There's one dark type on this team, and it's a Steezo. It's not going to be taking any hits. So then once it goes down, everything else here actually all either neutral or they're just weak to dark. So that's something to watch. Oh, well, Lucario, but it's frail as well. Yeah, just something to know. You can go ahead.
So I guess the thing that I like most about this team is that yeah, it's very offensive. It's got defensive checks to help out its offensive threats, and the fact that they have Lucario where they're not relying on Lucario to be their steel type. They got Ferrothorn, so Lucario is free to just come when it's needed and set up or just provide immediate offense. The things that I knocked this team the most for were hazard removal and the ground weakness, and I think this team puts a lot of pressure on Landerseer to be its ground immunity, and if somebody catches it off guard with a nice attack, I think this team could be easily taken advantage of with ground attacks. Um, but other than that, I think this team is very solid. I like the speed tiers a lot. Um, I like each mon individually on this team quite a bit, and I think it's very solid. I don't remember why I ranked it so low. I probably just took a quick look at it and knocked it for the removal and the ground weaknesses. But very solid team, Ellis, and I love that you're able to fit in your knocked owl pick at the end there.
That's a really nice touch.
Definitely. All right, moving on to the top squad in Zapdos. We've got Aku, and his team consists of Urshifu, Single Strike. We got Gengar, Primarina, Cinderace, Bronzong, Donphan, Mega Sceptile, Heliolisk, Lickitung, Forretress, and Rotom Fan. I want to let Sun start this one.
I think there are only two big flaws I find with this team. One is the speed gap between 60 and 86. The other is that potentially weak to ground spam. But other than that, I think everything else here fits really well with each other. You got amazing wall breakers like Urshifu, like Primarina, like Cinderace. You got sweepers like Mega Sceptile, or even again set up Primarina, like Gengar. All these things are very good at their job. They break for each other, and there's no issue with pivoting either. You got Cinderace U-turn, Primarina with flip turn, Urshifu U-turn as well. All of these guys can just get in, get out, go to the next breaker, and just repeat the cycle. Right? It's very, very simple, very easy to pilot this team. I think it's really, really good.
I would agree. I think the team is very versatile. Um, it doesn't require a lot of setup to punch holes enough for Mega Sceptile or Cinderace or anything fast on this team to just clean it up late game. I think Helios is a nice touch, and I think the low picks with Lickitung for Forretress and actually having Rotom Fan on this team, I think they're good picks to accent this team quite a bit. I think that Forretress being able to, I think Forretress really helps Urshifu a lot. Having the plethora of hazards can chip things down quite a bit for Urshifu or anything else to come in and break things late game. And if anything, a fairy type comes in, granted now a lot of them have mystical fire, but if you're able to scout that they don't, Forretress comes in for any fairy attack and then just slow volt switches out into something else. So again, the momentum is there. The threats for the offensive threats on the Pokemon that cure the momentum is there. So I think this team is going to be very hard for people to prep for and much less handle when they're actually on the battlefield.
So I was actually the only person that didn't put this team at first, and the reason is there no Pichu, and that's your mascot. Just kidding, it's not for that. I your team is not first because it doesn't have Pichu. Just kidding. The thing that there is something I'm gonna start reiterating or speaking again about the things that I like about this team. I love the first 5 picks of Urshifu, Gengar, Primarina, Cinderace, and Bronzong. I think these complement each other really, really well. I think the momentum game of this team is absolutely amazing. There are two things that I personally do not enjoy, and the first one was already told by Sansan, which is the speed gap, a really important speed gap between Primarina and Rotom Fan. But there is also the fact that if you're working with defense, with walls, you have Primarina, Bronzong, and Lickitung for Fortress. Lickitung does not like to be knocked off, and Bronzong and Fortress, unless Bronzong's carrying hit proof, which is very rare, uh, they are both weak to fire, so you're putting a little bit of a pressure on Primarina to be your fire resist here. But other than that, I gonna agree with the fact that this team is absolutely amazing. I really, really like it. I I put it on second. I think it's really, really good indeed as well. I think the Donphan spinner is really, really good to carry up with Fortress. And I think this team is gonna go pretty, pretty well. I am excited to see Aku play on Zapdos Division. I think he's gonna do really great, especially with this squad, because this squad is great.
And there you have it. Those are our power rankings post-draft, post-grace period for the Zapdos division. Let us know in the comments what you think. Hit us up in the Discord. The link will be below if you're watching this and for some odd reason you're not in the server. And yeah, stay tuned for the Articuno, Moltres, and Lugia division power rankings coming soon.